Can I start whenever?
You can start whenever.
Okay. Good afternoon. For my AP research project this year, I looked into whether aromatherapy can affect high school students' test scores. I've always had an interest in oil diffusers and the influence that they have had on my mood, whether I'm just sitting at home on the couch or preparing for a test. However, I was determined to discover if something as simple as a scent could influence how a human brain performs well in a school setting. Prior to conducting my data, I claimed aromatherapy would increase high school students' test scores while also decreasing their average test time. My research is relevant to the broader context because aromatherapy could be a potential intervention to challenges that high school students face, for instance, testing anxiety. Students, including myself, have struggled with becoming increasingly anxious during tests, reducing their confidence and making them feel down about themselves. Testing anxiety influences students' test scores, which can also make them feel like they are not capable of doing well in academic courses. If it is shown to be productive, an aromatherapy could be used as a potential intervention in schools like current accommodations like extended time, note cards, and taking breaks during tests. Studying past and current experiments, the gap in research is whether the use of aromatherapy in relation to school performance is strictly placebo or the actual impact of aromatherapy. The placebo effect occurs when participants benefit from the study because they tell themselves it's effective. However, in my study, this cannot be a gap because the teacher nor myself tells the students there will be aromatherapy within their classroom. Ultimately, this eliminates the possibility of students' test performances changing regardless of the actual impact of aromatherapy. For my procedure, I purchased a variety pack including 5 Laguna Moon essential oils, which included peppermint, eucalyptus, lemongrass, orange, and lavender. Prior to purchasing my oils, I reviewed current literature from Johns Hopkins Medicine stating aromatherapy do essential oils really work, which was published in 2024. The article states the most common oils were peppermint, eucalyptus, lemongrass, orange, and lavender, which supported my purchase of these exact same oils. The article declared peppermint supports energy and completes focus, eucalyptus increases mental clarity, lemongrass and lavender promote the release of stress and relax the body as a whole, and orange uplifts mood and promotes positive emotions. In terms of sampling and my target audience, my research is targeted at high school students at a private college preparatory school, and my sample size include 366 high school students in 18 academic courses. When selecting my control group and treatment group, I aimed for a diverse audience. My data was collected from a widely diverse audience through 3 academic courses: freshman and sophomore biology, sophomore and junior chemistry, and junior and senior physics. In terms of age dynamic, students from grades 9 through 12, ranging from ages 14 to 18, participated in my study. With diversity in academic courses and ages, I also was gender diverse with participation from both female and male students. In terms of variables, in my experiment, the treatment group was exposed to essential oil diffusers containing the selected oils, while the control group took the same test a day later without the diffusers and oils. Both groups were given the exact same standardized test in the same classroom, so no environmental conditions like room temperature, lighting, and seating to ensure more consistency. The experiment included 2 variables, an independent and a dependent variable. The independent variable included the presence or absence of aromatherapy in the classroom, while the dependent variable was the test scores and the duration of time it took to complete the assessment. My procedure included powering on the diffuser, adding 500 milliliters of water to the fill line within the body of the diffuser, adding 0.25 milliliters of the selected essential oil scent, and finally, I finished by increasing the volume of air to the highest level to make sure aromatherapy was reaching every corner of the classroom. To note, the exact measurements I listed in my procedure were used for hour-and-a-half duration classes, which is 90 minutes, so if a test were to run for 2 hours, it would need 9 drops or 0.28 milliliters of oil and 600 milliliters of water to make it accurate. The length of classes controlled the duration of my essential oil fumes on a block schedule, which is 90 minutes, like I mentioned before. I did not test on days where block schedules were shortened or affected by school events to result in more accurate data. In terms of potential implications, my experiment and treatment group could have drastically different academic abilities, meaning the aromatherapy wouldn't be the only thing affecting students' test scores. Additionally, one class I gathered data from had students from 2 grades, sophomore and juniors, and the teacher and I met prior to my research where she told me that the sophomores were more academically challenged on average and would receive lower test scores, with aromatherapy or without. For my data this year, I used statistical analysis, which was the appropriate design because it compared my control group and the data found. It is easily adaptable to scientific research and allows me to find trends or patterns from numerical values. Following the completion of these patterns, I was also able to create a Google spreadsheet where the average test score, average test time, test type, number of questions, number of class periods, and the topic of the test were recorded. As the spreadsheet collected this information, I was able to transform the number and percentages into graphs and pie charts. In my first experiment, biology, I had 2 class periods test with aromatherapy shown by the red stars on the bottom and 2 tests without aromatherapy shown on the top part of the chart. The average test scores with aromatherapy with the red stars were higher on average as they scored an 80.5% and an 84.4%. Without aromatherapy, students tested a 67.6% and an 86.5%. This showed an increase in students' test performances. However, it is also good to note that the students' test durations also decreased with aromatherapy. As you can see on the bottom, their average test time decreased as it was 52.5 minutes, and the average test time without aromatherapy was 57 minutes. This was only the first of my 2 biology exams, so moving on, I did the same exact procedure for another 4 class periods. This time, the top 2 show aromatherapy being used, which was orange and lavender. On average, they scored higher with a 78.5% and an 84.7%, while my class without aromatherapy scored a 76.2% and an 81.4%. It is also easy to note that the test durations decreased with the use of aromatherapy as it was 28.8 minutes with aromatherapy and 33.4 minutes without aromatherapy. You begin to notice the same pattern that my aromatherapy has shown to be effective. But I wanted to dig deeper, so I moved on to chemistry. I did 180 sample size students, 90 per day, and I discovered with the red stars yet again, showing where I used aromatherapy, test scores were higher and test times were lower. So in this experiment, I used peppermint, eucalyptus, orange, and tea tree. Orange and tea tree were known for promoting alertness and overall well-being. After collecting data over the course of 3 days for this, the average test time without using oils was 51 minutes, and the test was 49.5 minutes with the use of aromatherapy. The class average without the use of aromatherapy was 76.5%, taken from the 2% I listed, 78 and 75%. Well, the common score with aromatherapy was 80.7%, and that is the common average, which with the 2 percentages I listed, 80.75% and 80.5%. For my final assessment, I moved on to physics, where I had the treatment group test with tea tree and lavender essential oils focused on boosting awareness and relieving stress. The treatment group's average test score was a 96.6%, taken from the median test score of a 98.2 and a 95%. The average test time was 43 minutes in length. Now, 24 hours later, I did the same thing with the control group, and they tested without tea tree and lavender scents. This group scored an average of a 95.7%, taken from the median of a 96.4 and a 95%. They took the test in an average of 45.5 minutes. Although these test results and test durations didn't change dramatically, the treatment group still performed slightly better. The sample size for this class was 93 students, a mix of both juniors and seniors. After spending over 4 months in research, I came to a conclusion that aromatherapy positively affects high school students' test scores. While discovering that aromatherapy increases academic performance, I further discovered that the average test time per assessment decreased as well. In terms of test time, the results supported my hypothesis that the students in the treatment group would not only score better, but would finish in a shorter duration of time due to the benefits of aromatherapy. I used t-tests to compare the 2 groups' academic performance and the benefits that came with aromatherapy. Noticing this pattern, I discovered for the first test, when students tested without aromatherapy, it was 57 minutes, and the average test time with aromatherapy was 52.5 minutes. This same pattern I discovered in the second test when the average time without oils was 33 minutes and with oils was 29 minutes. The third test was 46 minutes without and 43 with, the fourth 55 without and 50 with, the fifth 53 without and 49 with, and finally the sixth test showed 52 minutes without and 50 minutes with the use of aromatherapy. Though I designed my methods to be as accurate as possible, if I were to do my experiment again, I'd conduct data from subjects and other than science. So for this, I did chemistry, physics, and biology, but I think if I were to go forward, I would maybe conduct data from English or math, language, religion, or elective courses like business, accounting, health, or biomed. By doing this, I would highlight a larger audience of students and ensure that the results are applicable across diverse subject areas rather than just science. In terms of the future, these results suggest that incorporating aromatherapy in school settings could be a simple, low-cost solution to enhance student performance, especially for those who struggle with testing anxiety. Schools might consider using essential oils during exams or even just study periods to promote a more calm and focused environment. With this in mind, my remaining questions include: how do different scents affect performance and focus? Could long-term use of aromatherapy lead to reduced effectiveness or side effects? And would other aromatherapy devices like candles, inhalers, or sprays be more effective than the diffuser in which I tested with? Thanks again for listening to my year-long research experiment where I discovered aromatherapy is beneficial to high school students' test scores. And here's my references.
All right, some questions. How did your initial exploration of research and articles lead to your final research question and goal?
Yeah, so in my initial exploration, I saw that many students, including myself, struggle with testing anxiety, which decreased their confidence, ability to stay motivated, and most importantly, their academic performance. I actually came across a study from 2020 by Wells that supported this, stating up to 85% of college students experience testing anxiety, which may contribute to decreased academic performance. As I continued my research, I learned that aromatherapy has the potential to reduce anxiety and improve focus. But I noticed that it hadn't been studied much in the classrooms, which led me to develop my research question: does aromatherapy impact high school students' test scores within the classroom?
Okay, thank you. So going along with that, how do the limitations of your method or data influence your new understanding?
Yeah, so the limitations of my method and data influence my new understanding that my data might not apply to the real world as a whole. For example, my research was limited to 366 students at one private college preparatory school, meaning my results might not apply to public schools or other schools across the world. I also had to consider other things like the ethical risks of using aromatherapy, which is possible scent sensitivities or allergies to the oils I use, which is why I was careful about how much essential oils I added to each diffuser. Additionally, I noted the difference in age and academic abilities between my freshman and senior students and noticed this and kept it in mind when I reviewed my results.
Okay, thanks. Last question. What's the most important research skill you developed as a result of the process, and how might you apply this to future endeavors?
Yeah, so the most important research skill I developed was learning there's no such thing as conducting too much data. For instance, I thought my data would be complete after researching in 12 academic courses, but my teacher pushed me to gather data from more classes, leading me to my final 18 academic courses with physics, biology, and chemistry. Ultimately, gathering more data than I thought helped me make my results more applicable and accurate, as I had a more diverse audience, which reminds me to be more open-minded and listen to your peers and mentors' suggestions because it'll help you in the long run.
Okay, thanks. A round of applause.